the last three speakers, you already know. Welcome to BSides. You're walking in. Welcome to BSides San Antonio, Texas 2026. I would give thanks to St. Mary's and Alan for hosting this event, as well as Kathy, Def Project, Alamisa, and Black Hills. I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Mr. David, who's going to be talking about hiring engineers, not scammers. So if you could help me welcome Mr. David.
Thanks. Hey, everybody, how's it going? I know I am between you and lunch, so we'll stick to our timing. We're going to talk a little bit about hiring people. So I'm David. I've been in InfoSec for quite a while. I'm getting old. But I do occasional other things, and that includes being an engineering manager at times. Couple disclaimers here. What we're talking about today, opinions and observations are my own, not my employer's. I'm not an expert in hiring people and in recruiting. So a lot of this I learned from scratch, but I thought it was like interesting enough to actually share with a bunch of security folks. And context matters. So the context here is smallish company. We don't have like a huge HR department that takes care of feeding hiring managers screened applicants, right, when they're trying to fill a position. So as the hiring manager for this job, I got to do a lot of this myself. And so what that afforded me was a look into the actual pipelines of like applications pouring in, people applying for the job, and what they came with. So pretty generic job description, right? Software engineer, not necessarily a security engineer that we were hiring for. And this graph shows you the amount of applications we got. So you can see this job posting was open for quite a long time, over half a year, started here end of April, we closed it in October, partially because we were hiring multiple recs under that one opening. But you can also see that over that half year, we got almost like 6,000 applications into our applicant tracking system. Quite a bit. And then you see like down here, like occasional spikes. You can see like the first day, there's like over 500 applications poured in. And then you can see there's occasional spikes, probably when like the posting got like refreshed on LinkedIn and those kind of things. There's occasional rejection spikes when I like looked at batches of applications and decided who to move forward in the pipeline, who not. And what these pipelines typically look at, if you're not familiar with or look like, is as somebody applying for a job, you fill out a form, right? You provide your resume. And then on the company side, somebody looks at the resumes, looks at your application, decides, oh, does this sort of match like what we're looking for? And then more or less, there's typically a screening interview. Often a recruiter will talk to you and like feel you out. And then there's often a hiring manager interview. And then there's technical interviews. And depending on the company you work for, that can get pretty involved, like a whole day of interviews or shorter, depends. We're somewhere in the middle. Again, we're a small company, so a bit flexible about how we do all of this, rather than being super standardized about it. So we had all these applicants, right? Great. And so we started scheduling interviews. We're like, yeah, those resume looks great. I want to talk to this person. And so here's a couple things we saw in these first interviews. People using virtual backgrounds, right? So those are all like Zoom interviews these days. They're not in person. Fairly standard to have like a virtual background rather than showing your bookshelf in the back. But some of that seemed pretty glitchy, bad video. People were using directional microphones so that are designed to only capture your voice when you directly talk at them, right? But still, we were hearing like weird artifacts in the background. Like sometimes it sounded like people were in a call center, or somebody would like give the applicant instructions from the side. Really strange. Or somebody pretending to be like a software engineer, tech worker somewhere in Texas, but the audio quality was really bad. Like, what's going on here? Like, if you're interviewing for a job, wouldn't you like go through the effort of making sure your internet is good and those kind of things? Reading answers from their screens. Like, answering every question without like pausing, without thinking, just being like, I have the answer. And never asking like, oh, like, can you clarify what you just asked me? Or like, I don't, like, what specifically are you looking for? Like, always giving an answer. We had, if you advanced to the more technical interviews, we had a live coding exercise there where we asked you to write some code, solve a software engineering problem, and people would just more or less instantly produce a perfect piece of code, never asked for like clarification, never validated their assumptions. So it all seemed a little bit fishy, right? And so we started getting suspicious. What's going on here? And so across the industry, none of this is like really a surprise. Again, I'm not an expert in this industry, but like it's typical. There's like, depending on what company you are, there are people trying to get a job with you, right? Advertised as remote. So for some people, they might be somewhere else in the world, and for them that would be a good paying gig. If they even can just score this job for a couple of months before it gets detected that they're actually not in the US, and this is a US-based position. There's all sorts of things going on. There's people just using bots to create and file applications. All those things, maybe even industrial espionage, right? I want to get a job at this company, or even just get an interview so that I can ask questions about what their tech stack looks like. So how then do you find valid candidates? And so we started learning. To me, this was new. I was like, hey, Claude, if you were to just randomly write me a resume pretending I'm a senior software engineer, what would that look like? And this is what Claude came up with. I'm like, this looks exactly like the resumes I've been staring at in our applications. And I was like, hey, Claude, look at this job ad that we've posted and tailor the resume to that job ad. And Claude was like, sure. Oh, right, your company is in Austin, so obviously I'm going to be in Austin. And oh, the job profile says you need this engineer to mentor juniors. You need them to be a US person because we have restrictions on that. Languages, programming languages important to you are Java and Go, so let me add those. You're in AWS, another cloud infrastructure. Oh, security is important to you, so let me just add those. And so all of a sudden, as a hiring manager, all these keywords I had been looking for to pick candidates I wanted to interview, right? I need somebody who knows about Go and about like cloud infrastructure. And so I'd just been like filtering applications for these keywords. And I'm like, obvious, this is useless, right? Like, because if somebody creates a phony application, that's exactly what it's going to look like. All these keywords are going to be in there. So we started learning. And so I went to our people team, our HR team, and I was like, hey, can I have an API key for our applicant tracking system so that I can like look at these applications, these hundreds and thousands of applications programmatically, and I started doing that. And so I would basically pull all of these applications out of the tracking system and look for things to me that seemed like indicators of fraud. For example, simple, but why would you as a candidate put like an application in half a dozen times? You do this obviously to increase your chances that one of those gets advanced to an interview, but I don't know. As a hiring manager, I don't appreciate that. Now I have to look at 6 applications, even if it's a real person rather than one. More fishy, using similar email addresses to put multiple applications in. Why are you doing this? Are you trying to game the system?
Is this multiple applications for the same job rec or multiple different openings at the same company?
Good question. Same job rec, just that one job ad we had posted. Different applications using different email addresses, which email address is the unique identifier in our tracking system, but having the same phone number. Weird. Having the same LinkedIn profile. And then we'll get into what leadership answers are here in a moment. So I was like, there's definitely some indicators that like indicate fishiness of applications, right? So here's an example. 4 applications, different email addresses, so tracked as individual applicants, but using a strange pattern, right? Like a unique name, but then using like numbers to create different applications. I'm like, oh, that's fishy. Here's another one. Donald has a LinkedIn profile, and Donald sent us an application with that profile, but then Denise also sent us an application using that same LinkedIn profile. So I'm like, is there a bot somewhere just cranking out applications and reusing a finite set of LinkedIn profiles, phone numbers, stuff like that. So here's my favorite screening tool that I came up with to like introduce a little bit of nuance into these applications. I added a question to the application form you had to fill out as an applicant saying, hey, tell me something unique. I want an answer that I can screen for coming from a real person. Tell me how, as a senior engineer, you've made an impact like in your company, somewhere in your career that went past just, writing a piece of software. As a senior engineer, you're expected to lead teams, have an impact. Beyond that, give me an example. And I was like, now people have to think, right? They can't just use a bot to fire these applications. They have to put something unique in there. And that works to some extent. So here's an example answer that somebody put in there. Let the adoption of Agile and CI/CD practices. Great. Or maybe not. Because the same day Annie put in her application with this answer, Sam also put in an application with that exactly verbatim same answer. I'm like, oh, great. They're using AI to just come up with these answers, right? And then 3 weeks later, Annie and Sam put another application in using a different but exactly the same answer in this prompted question. There's something else in these answers. Can anybody spot it? I acknowledge it's a little tiny to read. M dashes. Are there any? Yeah, there's one. All right, that's a good one. Something else.
They use the same language about legacy system in the microservices.
Yeah. And there's something else, which is a bunch of like percentages quantifying the success. And these percentages are always round numbers. And so it turns out, at least half a year ago, when you asked your random frontier model to come up with like demonstrating success, obviously you want to do that by expressing percentages, right, of something you achieved, but it's always round numbers. And it's like, oh, interesting. I can screen for that. You remember this the slide, right, from earlier? Again, take a look at the overnight, we got like 600 or 700 applications.
Is that when you're posting it and boosting it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so we posted it. This is UTC, right, but like on the 29th. And within hours, we got like hundreds of applications. Do you think that if I'm an engineer, I'm looking for a new job, and I just randomly like have like an alert for new postings, and I respond to that as soon as possible? To me as a hiring manager, does that tell me that you're really interested in that job? Did you look at my company and the profile of the job? Or did you just try to, as fast as possible, get an application in? And now I'm stuck with a bunch of like, you know, random, I don't know. If you didn't even bother to look whether it's a good match, like, now it's on me. So funny things, right? And then you can see like a couple dozen early applications that all use like a broken email domain. Like obviously somebody was generating those automatically. All those kind of things. Other things we looked for, I tried looking at like metadata, like in PDF and Word resumes, right? Like how were these generated, with which tools? Didn't really work that well. I didn't feel like I could use those as indicators for fishiness much. LinkedIn profiles though. Typical expectation these days, everybody has a LinkedIn profile, right? And you include that in your resume and your application when you apply for a job. So most scammers have one too. They will create a fake LinkedIn profile just to match the application and their resume. But sometimes that goes wrong, especially if it's automated. Sometimes these profiles get taken down. And so you can look for 404s and like, is the LinkedIn inconsistent with the resume in terms of the places they've worked at and the timelines? So that's a little bit of screening you can do. The question in all of this though, right, is like, am I really dealing with like malicious applicants, or is it just people who are trying to up their chances by automating things because they think our hiring systems are broken? Really hard to tell, and I'm not claiming I have the answer. But what I do know as a hiring manager is like, if you're trying to like game my system, that's not helping me, so I don't look at that like favorably. So even if you're a genuine applicant, maybe don't do that. I've got a couple of conclusions here. We have a couple of minutes, so I don't know, like, is anybody here like an actual hiring manager, hiring people or managing people? Some, all of us have applied for jobs, so I have a couple of tidbits for all of us, I hope. So for recruiters or for hiring managers, personal referrals are always the best, right? Like if you can get your own employees to refer their friends and like previous coworkers, that's the most solid pipeline you can have in terms of, yes, this is a person that's already been vouched for, fantastic. But there's other things you can do. If you want to be able to look in resumes for tech that you're interested in, then don't be specific about it in the job post, right? Say something like, the requirement is that you can write like object-oriented software, rather than saying, I'm looking for people that are familiar with Java and Go. And now if people have like Java and Go in their resume, then it wasn't tipped off by the job posting you posted. What else? Automate things. I showed you some examples. And most certainly, you can pay for solutions, right? Like we had the basic applicant tracking system, so we didn't have something that would automatically screen for some of these fraudulent aspects in those applications. Before you like spend time like interviewing people, invest the time to look them up. Does their LinkedIn profile look genuine? Do they have any projects posted somewhere that look genuine? And if you have the money to like pay like external, or maybe if you're a large company, internal recruiters to go and do all of this for you, so that as the hiring manager, you just end up with like qualified candidates that have already been vetted, even better, do it. If you're helping to interview, right, we had a slide in the beginning of all like the indicators of, oh, that's weird. This person on the other end of Zoom, like the video being really wonky and like background noise. Learn about these indicators, but also beware of bias, right? So it's also really easy. I have a German accent. I grew up in Germany. If somebody has like an accent from somewhere else, does that mean they are in another country? Maybe, maybe not. So you gotta be careful about getting biased too much. Come up with like questions that an AI would like give a random answer to that you could spot. And then if it's a genuine human thinking about it and giving you an answer, that increases your confidence that you are talking to a genuine applicant. Live coding tests do help, despite all things. And what we did also in the beginning, when we started learning, was like, hey, let's retro how this interview went and why we ended up thinking that this was a phony candidate. Like, are there any indicators we can learn from that we can use earlier on in the hiring pipeline to screen these people out? And lastly, if you are applying for a job, here's my advice. There's nothing wrong with using AI, right? To like make your resume look better, to like strengthen your language, whatever. That's all good. But make sure it's still enough of you in there and not like generic things that AI put into your resume that as a hiring manager, that doesn't look to me like, oh yeah, obviously Claude wrote this and I can't tell whether there's an actual human behind this or not. Right, we had the whole thing about metrics. If you provide metrics, be specific. Also tell me how you measured them, how you measured this, rather than like coming up with metrics and nothing behind it. Maybe qualitative descriptions of success and impact are better than putting percentages in there. I don't know. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and is consistent with your resume. LinkedIn has like a little feature where you can verify your identity in LinkedIn. I think that helps a little bit. And yeah, if you have projects, if you have like a personal GitHub or whatever, share those things in your application, and then the people screening applications can look at that and be like, oh, wow, yeah, this person actually worked in projects. He presented at BSides. I can look that up. I can verify that. Those are all little tidbits that help. That's all I got. We're at time, but I also think it's lunchtime, so if you have questions, I'm happy to answer some. And I am hiring in AppSec. If you are a software person with strong security skills, look me up on LinkedIn if you're looking for a job. With that, thanks for your attention. Any questions?
So have you noticed any particular platform that gets more like scam applications versus others? Also along a specific, say, job position versus software engineer, manager, different roles?
Yeah, good question. So I speculate that the reason we got so many applications or so many phony ones is that a generic software engineer And no offense to software engineers, right? Like, they do awesome stuff. But it is a fairly generic job. And so it's like something that if you run a call center operation somewhere and you are just after getting high-paying jobs in a remote country, that is the type of job to target, right? Versus like once you get into security specializations and whatnot, maybe that's less a problem. As far as platforms, I don't have good data on that. We didn't set up our way of distinguishing between applications that came in via LinkedIn versus directly on our website versus Indeed versus other platforms in a manner that let me collect good data on that. Don't know.
Are you familiar with the TPRK style remote workers? Like those are like initially it started with North Korean funded, like government funded workers where they like steal identity from data breaches, and then they pretend to be like I'm in America.
Yep.
Person
Yeah.
interviews everything. They use these like stolen SSNs and like doctors.
Oh, well, yep.
And then like I worked a matter last month, and the client said that he was our best software developer, but he was actually not who said he was.
Yep.
If you are not familiar with that, I'd say like, go and read about it. You'll definitely.
Mm-hmm. It sounds familiar. I'm pretty sure I talked to some of them. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all. Enjoy your Saturday. Appreciate it.